I just rode my bike from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and boy, are my legs tired. No, seriously, I rode my bike from San Francisco to Los Angeles, but you know all about that. I will see you on the other side. Welcome to episode 22 of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter. I am a crocheter. I am also a cyclist with AID's Lifecycle, a just completed 7-day, 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, supporting the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. If this is your first time joining me, thank you so much for tuning in to find out what I'm up to. And if you're a return viewer, thank you for coming back. I have had a busy last couple of weeks. We completed AIDS Life Cycle. Last time I filmed, I think it was the day or 2 days before I was headed up to San Francisco for orientation and then for the ride. And so over the last week that ended this past Saturday, or probably a week ago when you see this, we finished up the 2023 AIDS Life Cycle. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just sort of talking about that. Obviously, when you're riding your bike for 5 or 6 hours a day, there's not a lot of time for knitting, so I don't have too much new to show on that front. But given that it is Pride Month, there are a lot of opportunities for some craftivism things to share this week. So I'm going to spend a little more time than usual on that. But in terms of the last couple of weeks, as I mentioned, right after I filmed last time, I flew up to San Francisco to orientation, which we call day zero. On the ride, it's at the Cal Palace in Daly City, actually, outside of San Francisco. I went directly from the airport there, got things sorted out, sat through the mandatory safety briefing, got my bike, which had arrived via truck, got it all set up and ready to go with one slight snafu. I, somewhere between the airplane and my bike, lost my little saddlebag that carries my spare tubes and CO2 canisters for pumping up my tires, and the tools needed to change tires. Somehow it got lost. And so later that afternoon, I ended up having to run to Sports Basement. Thank you, Sports Basement, to buy a new bag and get all those supplies again. But anyway, besides that one little snafu, that was really kind of the only real snafu of the week in terms of forgetting things or losing things. It was a nice day. Caught up with my friend who I was staying with, who was also doing the ride with me, and then I got to meet up with and have lunch with Ava from Seismic Yarn, as well as her children, the Die and Turns, and they gave me this fabulous T-shirt, which I took with me on the ride, and we went to have delicious burritos in the Mission, and we just got to catch up a little bit. So in honor of Ava Seismic Yarn, I'm wearing my 100% Seismic Yarn Sweet Shadow wrap today. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff in some of the individual yarns in this in a little bit. But that was great. It was great to catch up with Ava. She has been such a supporter of my fundraising and the ride, and she's been had some serious back pain issues, which I can relate to because I've had a bit of that myself. And so she's taking things a little slower on the dyeing front, but she had just gotten back into the dye studio, so that was wonderful to see, and had a great time with her and the kids. And they all showed up the next morning for the ride out at the Cow Palace at 5:30 in the morning. I was so tickled to get the text that they were there, and then got to ride by them and see them cheering me on. In all of my time doing these rides, which go back to, not the California ride, but AIDS rides, go back to the late 90s, I've never had anyone cheering me on, specifically cheering me on at one of the ride outs, because I was either riding from Boston, where none of my friends were, or in Texas or Alaska didn't have folks at the ride out. So it was really special to have Ava and the kids show up and cheer me on. So it was cool to see them as I rode through the chute, and then spent the next 7 days riding my bike down the coast from San Francisco to Los Angeles with 2,000 of my closest friends. Each year, the ride is generally the same route, or roughly the same route. Obviously, there's traffic issues or road construction issues that kind of reroute things a little bit, but it's generally the same route. But every year, the ride is completely different, and so there are different challenges each year. This year, I would say the challenge was the cold for me. I don't love riding in cold, wet weather. And although that was cool, weather was nice kind of when you get to the Central Valley and things can get up to the 90s and the hundreds typically. We didn't break 70 degrees, I don't think, a single day on the ride. And almost every single day started out with drizzle. I was prepared for drizzle. I was not prepared for day 3 when there was 2 hours of what felt like torrential downpours. It was just a pretty hard, steady rain and very cold. So that was the biggest challenge. Day 3 is usually one of my favorite days. We have lunch in a little town called Bradley, which I think has a population of 200 or 300 people. They have a K through 8 school there, which is where our lunch happens. And over the years, the whole town has really come together and supported the ride. They run a barbecue at our lunch stop. So there's the regular lunch if you don't want to participate in the barbecue. But they run a barbecue as a fundraiser for the school. And as part of that barbecue, you can go through the regular barbecue line, or there is something called the $100 Burger Club, which for $100 you get the privilege of being sort of served by some of the kids in the school district in terms of bringing you your food. You can also eat in the auditorium, which typically the air conditioning is the big draw of $100 Burger Club. This year it was the heat because it was so cold and everyone was soaking wet. So it's usually my favorite day, but after having ridden for 2 straight hours in the pouring rain and being soaked to the bone and really, really cold, it was probably the low point of the ride this year. For me, I did basically, you start out that day doing what I think is the toughest climb of the entire 7 days. It's called Quadbuster. It is not only long, it is steep, and it is difficult because everyone's kind of bunched up because everyone's going generally pretty slowly. So it's kind of treacherous in terms of like just having a lot of people because you also have traffic coming by you and whatnot. Anyway, got to the top of Quadbuster and started what is usually a very fun descent and then pretty much a flat ride for the rest of the day. And the rain started. And then it was 2 hours of rain and cold wind. I knew from past experience that if I stopped, I would probably not be able to get back on my bike and keep going. And so I just blew through all of the morning rest stops, and I can't remember the exact mileage, but it was like a 30-mile ride through the rain to get to Bradley, at which point the rain had stopped. I got into the heated auditorium, kind of warmed up, and was still pretty wet, but was going to head back out onto the road because it looked like the sun came up. And as soon as I stood up, I just got incredibly cold and was like shaking. And a friend of mine saw me and said, "You don't look good. You should probably go to medical." Now I knew the medical team had brought out Mylar blankets for a lot of people. And what they were doing was have you take off your jersey and wrap you like a burrito in the Mylar blanket, which did 2 things. One, the Mylar just heats you up by nature of it being Mylar, and it kept the wet jersey off of your skin so that the wind didn't chill you even more. And that was basically what got me through the rest of the day. It didn't rain anymore. The sun didn't really come out, but by the time I got through the next 25 or 30 miles, whatever it was, to camp, I was pretty pretty well dried out, and was able to finish the day. Unlike about a third of the riders who had to be picked up by buses at the various rest stops along the way and driven into camp just because they were too cold and couldn't go on. So I felt good about powering through that, but it was probably the low point of the ride. The rest of the ride was great. I didn't have any physical problems. I didn't have any mechanical problems on my bike. The cool weather kind of a drag in the morning for me, but by the afternoon I was thankful that we weren't up into the 90s, and I think as a result of that I was able to have probably one of the fastest rides I've ever had. It's not a race. They make that very clear all throughout the week. It's a ride, it's not a race, but I'm competitive by nature, and so I do like to keep track of how I'm doing, and I'm also just, it's a long, it's 7 long days of riding, and I just kind of want to get to camp every night and get a hot shower and start to rest up for the next day. So it was a fantastic week of riding for me, just in terms of the stats. It's 535 miles or so this year because of some changes in the route at the very end. It was a little bit shorter than in the past years, even though they advertise it as 545. My bike computer says that I rode my bike for 36 hours and 8 minutes. The days were longer just because of rest stops and lunch and things like that, but that was actual riding time. And I was able to maintain about 14.6 miles an hour, which is a pretty good pace for me at the ripe old age of, in a couple weeks, 55. I feel pretty good about being able to get close to 15 miles an hour over a 7-day period that includes 20,000 feet of vertical climbing. So I felt good about the ride stats. More importantly, the fundraising stats for the ride this year, we raised $11.7 million, down pretty dramatically from last year, but last year was a record year. I think it was 17.7. After 2 years of the pandemic, there was just a big pent-up demand for participating in the ride, and so I think everyone expected this year would be down. It's also down versus 2019, which is probably more comparable, and I'm not 100% sure why that happened. There were only 1,400 riders this year versus in the past up to like 2,500 riders and 500 roadies. So there were 2,000 of us out on the road, but as a result of just the smaller numbers, while it was nice to have what felt like a very intimate ride, it kind of hurt on the fundraising side. So the total was 11.7, and hopefully next year we will be back to a more normal group of size of riders. Personally, my fundraising was the best I've ever done. I increased from $31,000 last year to $50,855, which I was just blown away by. This community, specifically meaning the knitting and crocheting and fiber arts community, came through in such a huge way through my various Knitalongs and Crochetalongs and D-stash auctions and things like that. That it was just a tremendous boost to my fundraising. I was the number 3 overall fundraising among all 1,400 riders, and I was the number 1 fundraiser for Southern California. So I'm very proud of both of those results. I should have mentioned up front, you can find me on Instagram at GaryKnitsAndRides, and you can find me at Ravelry at GaryKnitsAndRides. This is what we call ride brain, that the normal things that you normally do kind of get fuzzy as you recover from 7 days on the bicycle. So a great big thank you to everyone who supported my fundraising this year, either through direct donations or through one of the events that I run. I'm already planning for next year. I have big plans to make it another record year and hopefully get me finally to my long-term goal of raising $200,000 for AID's Lifecycle, at which point I will probably take a little break from riding my bike, but I'll still be doing fundraising for other things. So that was just a bit of a little recap on AID's Lifecycle. If you follow me on Instagram, I tried to do daily updates, so there's a lot of pictures over there in terms of what the week looked like from my perspective. If there is anyone out there who might be interested in doing the ride next year, either as a cyclist or as a roadie, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you about what that takes in terms of fundraising, what that takes in terms of training, kind of what life on the road for 7 days looks like. It is a wonderful experience. Each year I come out of it sort of with a renewed faith in humanity. We call it the love bubble, and you've heard me talk about that before, but it really is, for 7 days, just this group of people making magic and doing nothing but sort of taking care of each other and getting us all safely down the road from San Francisco to LA. And it's a really, tremendous experience, especially given the stress of the event and the physical toll that it takes on everyone. The fact that we can sort of still make it through with very minimal kind of outbursts and bad feelings between people. It really is sort of a remarkable event. So if anyone is interested in joining up, maybe making a little team of crafters to raise money together. I know of one other knitter who has already signed up for the 2024 ride. So I think you only need like 3 or 5 people to officially make a team. So that would be kind of fun. So hit me up if you're interested. I'd love to have that conversation. Since I've been back, I've been recuperating a little bit. Like I said, I felt pretty good physically coming off the ride, but mentally, it's just things are still a little fuzzy, as you just saw when I forgot to tell you where you can find me on social media. So I've just been doing a little mindless knitting. Just started to pick up some more complicated knitting projects in the last day or so. I have a whole list of chores of things that I've put off for months that need to get done now that I'm not spending 7 or 8 hours or 4 or 5 days a week riding my bike, and started also to plan for a fall vacation. So that's kind of what's been going on for the last couple weeks. And maybe now we can move into some of the knitting and crocheting things. We are in week 2, I think now, of the End AIDS Knitalong and Crochetalong Pride 23 edition. I loved seeing, while I was out on the road, loved seeing everyone getting started on their projects and kind of the variations that people are doing for both the knitting and the crocheting side of things. So that was very exciting, and I've been enjoying looking at those as I have spent the last couple of days catching up. I do need to draw winners for the first 2 rounds of prizes. So we'll have the cast-on prize, which will run through the first week, and then the one this week, which will celebrate the end of AIDS Lifecycle for me. So I will get that done in the next couple of days, reach out to the winners, and then maybe show the prizes on a live or something in the next week or so. In terms of the actual projects, for the Knitalong, we are working on the Pin Up Rainbows shawl. I'll show you my progress on mine here in just a minute. It is a pattern by a Whimsical Wood yarn co. Samantha from Whimsical Wood also dyed up the yarn kits for the fundraising aspect of the Knitalong, but obviously you can use whatever yarn you like. It's an assigned pooling project. As written, it's 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn. There is still plenty of time to join both the Knitalong and the Crochetalong. They always run for 2 months, so things are going to run through the end of July. So you still have plenty of time to join in if you want to grab some assigned pooling yarn and work on the Pin Up Rainbows shawl with all of us. It is, as I mentioned, it's a 2 skein fingering weight shawl. The kits that Samantha did, and then a lot of the other planned pooling or assigned pooling yarn that I've seen out there, the pooling or the planned pooling stitches make little rainbows, and there are several other make-alongs happening with rainbow themes that you could use to double dip in. So one is Covert Knits is doing her Pride Sockathon. The hashtag is Pride Sockathon 23. But it's not just socks. It's anything that has a rainbow theme. So if you're working on the pinup shawl, you might as well throw that hashtag into your post along with the End AIDS KAL Pride 23 hashtag, which is how you get entered into my drawings. And the other one is Sam over at an Irish knitting podcast is running what he's calling his Rainbow KAL. So the hashtag is Rainbow KAL 23. And again, it's any project that sort of has a rainbow theme, and he is running his KAL to sort of raise awareness of, during Pride Month, of kind of the challenges that the LGBTQ community is facing, not only here in the States, but around the world, as violence and legal action against the community have seen a dramatic uptick in the past year. So you can use his Rainbow KAL 23 hashtag, the Pride Sockathon 23 hashtag from Covert Knits, and double triple dip into some different make-alongs using your Pinup Rainbows shawl. For those of you who don't have access to assigned pooling yarn for whatever reason, there is a hat pattern called the Scribbles hat, which kind of mimics the assigned pooling technique, but you're using two different yarns instead of just having one with different colors in it. And you're welcome to use that as an entry into the make-along. It's really just all about having fun and not too focused on rules around which exact pattern you're using. In fact, if you didn't want to make the shawl, Samantha Whimsical Wood has a cowl pattern which you could easily adapt. It's Pinup Rainbows cowl. I think it's written in DK, but it's obviously you could easily adapt that into fingering weight. So that is the knit-along side of things. On the crochet-along side of things, we are working on the In the Forest of the Night cardigan by Elizabeth Desamore at Desamore Designs. It is an open cardigan with a leaf lace pattern on the back, and then 3 sleeve options, so sort of a sleeveless short sleeve, which I would say is more like a cap sleeve, and then a long sleeve sleeve version. It's a DK weight cardigan. She is using in the pattern, and then the kits that were dyed up by Brooke at Fully Spun are a cotton blend. So in the pattern, Elizabeth uses Cotton from Knit Picks. Brooke used a 50-50 merino cotton blend, but any DK weight yarn would work. I think the cotton gives the cardigan a little structure, a little stability versus maybe a merino silk blend or something like that. But I think it would look cool and drapey in something that didn't have that structure as well. I have not picked mine back up. I'm working on it for my sister, and hopefully in the next week or so I'll be able to pick it back up. I'm probably 2/3 of the way done. I just need to do one more pattern repeat and then start working on the split for sleeves sort of section where you come up over the shoulder. And also a double dip opportunity there. I mentioned it before. If you did not start your project before the 11th of June, you could be tagging your In the Forest of the Night cardigan into Liz over at the Black Knitter. She is running a Juneteenth make-along. So all the requirements for that is to have either a pattern or a yarn or a tote bag or stitch markers or something from a black maker. The pattern in this case would certainly apply, and depending on the yarn that you're using, that might get you entered there as well. So if you wanted to double dip there, the hashtag there is BK Juneteenth Mal 2023. So there's some opportunities not only to participate in my knit-along and crochet-along, but to double dip in some of the other folks in Instagram Fiber World's projects as well. So that is that. Once we are done with this round of the knit-alongs and crochet-alongs, there'll be a little bit of a break. I am this week wrapping up and circling back with all of the designers and dyers who are going to be involved in the kickoff for season 3 in the fall It is going to be the biggest event we've done yet. I'm very, very excited about all the participants. There are going to be a ton of different projects to choose from to participate, and it's going to tie into another event, double dipping, for doing some good in the community. So I'm very excited to share that. Probably starting in mid-August is when we'll start to roll out the designers and dyers who are going to be involved, so we can start to get pre-orders done on some of the kits, etc., etc. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's it, kind of on the fundraising side, since we just ended the A's Lifecycle, and so my fundraising, at least for the next couple of months, is done. And hopefully I will have a lot more time to just focus on knitting and crocheting. So to that end, let's talk about some of the projects I've got going on. As I mentioned, on the ride, there's not a lot of time to knit or crochet. I did take some with me. If you'll recall, I had knit a bunch of hats leading up to heading to San Francisco. I was going to give those to the folks who worked on my gear truck. And then so I made like 7 because I wasn't sure what size heads people had, what style people liked. I did that. They thought it was very cute and fun, and I saw one of the folks on my ride was a woman, and I saw her one morning because it was pretty chilly, wearing her hat, so that made me feel good. And we were talking one night at dinner with some of the folks who basically run the ride, so the CEOs of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the LA LGBT Center, as well as the ride director. So the ride itself is kind of co-owned by the two beneficiaries, and they have basically a CEO of the ride. She's been doing it for 7 years. And we were talking about the hats that I made, and I'd given one to my rider rep as well, and they were like, where's our hats? So I brought them the next night to dinner, gave one to the CEO, and the hats that I had left I didn't think would suit the ride director particularly well, but I was working on one that I thought would look really cute on her. And so I had started at day 0, and by day 3 or so, I was just about finished with it. I finished it up and gave it to her. And so I don't have it with me, but it's an FO. But I'm working on the same hat again in the same yarn, so I can show that. And this is what it is. This is the Citrus hat by Laura Treadway, who is treadling on Instagram. And this may be my new go-to worsted weight charity hat pattern because it is super easy. It makes a great hat. It's basically a 2x2 rib here, and then it goes into a bigger rib up at the top. I am knitting this in Knit Picks Felici worsted. The colorway is Time Traveler. And it is just a great, super fast hat. Because of the ribbing, it looks really small when you're done with it, but it has a tremendous amount of stretch. I made the small size, and it fit her perfectly. I'm making this one in the larger size just because most of what I've done is in small sizes, and this one's going to go to Knit the Rainbow. And so I thought it would be good to have a variety of sizes. It's actually same yarn is back here in this hat, which I can't remember the name of that hat, but that's also going to be in the rainbow hat, as are the leftovers from the ones I knit for the roadies. So the citrus hat, really love it. Maybe my new go-to worsted weight charity hat, just because it's a super fast knit that I think could fit a lot of people's heads really well. So that is one that is going on. I got home and I found another hat that I was working on, and I'd forgotten about casting it on. I think I'd finished up all the hats for the roadies and didn't want to start the first citrus hat until I was actually on the ride, because it was supposed to be like knitting while I was doing the ride. So I guess I cast on another hat. I could not remember what it was, but I have a bundle in my Ravelry of worsted weight hat patterns. And so based on the stitch count, because it was just 1x1 rib when I got back. Based on the stitch count, I was pretty sure it is the Bankhead hat by Susie Gourlay, who's Knit Natural on Instagram. that pattern calls for a twisted one by one twisted rib, and I couldn't really tell if that's what I was doing, but I switched over to twisted rib, and now I'm into the regular pattern part of that. So this is going to be a bankhead-ish hat. If I didn't start out with twisted rib, it's going to be close to a bankhead hat. This is in Always Be Kind yarns, rainbow confetti colorway worsted weight, from Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn. A lot of the hats that I knit up for the roadies were done in this yarn, or in the neon confetti colorway as well. So this is going to be a Knit the Rainbow hat. I will probably put this aside for the time being because I am pretty much 100% focused on one other project for the time being that I have been working on for a while, and because of all the hat knitting, kind of got pushed aside, although I know the recipient of this will forgive me, or has forgiven me, and understands that I was trying to do something nice for the roadies. So those are the two little projects for when I'm, I don't think we have any more concerts or anything for a while, but if we do have anything where I can go and knit at the theater or in the symphony hall, those hats will come with me, because this project has now reached the very unwieldy stage of its existence. I'm going to try to show it. I'm also going to pop up a picture of it that I had laid out on the bed today. But this is the graduation blanket that I've been working on for months. It is the Windy Day blanket by Pearl Soho. So you can see, let's see the three colors. So we have this is all Malabrigo Rios. It's in a cream color, this burgundy. I'm going to forget all the names of the things. That's bike brain. I could have told you 2 weeks ago, and then this sort of cadet-ish kind of blue. It's modular. You knit triangles that then become squares. There are 3 squares across. I am just about finished with square number 9, and I'll pop a picture of it up here. That means I only have one more row of squares done, so to do. So I am about 75% of the way done. It's just garter stitch with some picking up stitches and things, and various ways of attaching the squares together. So it's knit modularly, so there's no seaming at the end. Although there are a lot of loose ends to weave in. I've realized I thought it was going to be no loose ends, but there are a lot, and I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. I will say, at some of these 4 corners where 4 of the squares come together, it's a big gap, and some of that is where I've made errors and I get to the end and I have fewer stitches than I need to. But I think with a little finessing, when I weave in the ends, I'll be able to tighten that up and close those gaps without much problem. But it's pretty mindless. It's not just straight garter stitch, because as I said, you pick up a bunch of stitches and then you kind of create these triangles by slipping and passing stitches over and things like that, increasing and decreasing it, or decreasing mainly at either end. So it's not just completely mindless. It takes a little bit of concentration, or you end up in the situation like I did, where you have these little gaps at the end because you're 1 or 2 stitches off. But that's something I can work on while watching TV, and hopefully in 2 weeks, by the end of the month or so, I will have that all finished up and be able to pack it up and send it off to the recipient who just graduated from high school while I was on the ride. And she will have it to take with her to her dorm in the fall. So that is the Windy Day blanket from Pearl Soho in Malabrigo Rios. All of the information and links to patterns and everything like that is going to be in the show notes down below. Also, I'll pop up a QR code here, so you can, if you're watching this on your TV, you can just click on it and it'll take you to the Google Doc of the show notes that then has the links to the patterns and vendors and things like that. Oops, sorry. The other thing that I have done a little bit of work on, and just in the last day because my brain wasn't going to allow me to focus on anything challenging, is my version of the Pin Up Rainbows shawl for the AID Knitalongs and Knitalong and Crochetalong, or the Knitalong. And again, this is by Whimsical Wood Yarn Co. It is her yarn as well as her pattern. This is the navy base with rainbow pops, which was called Get Off Our Asses and Let's End AIDS, which she dyed up specially for my Knitalong, and we sold in kits and sold out very, very quickly. But I was able to snag one of the navy ones for myself. And as you can see, I have made 2 complete little rainbows. This first one here is a little scrunched, but I think on the second one here, I was able to loosen up making the stitch so that when I pinned it up, it looked a little more rainbowy and a little less triangle-y. This has been fun. It's a little bit of the technique takes, as indicated, takes a little bit of time to sort of work out. I would say neither of these rainbows got made or pinned up on the very first try. And it's also just kind of a bit of a logistical, think a little bit ahead challenge, because you make the rainbows and then you wait, and several rows later you pin them up. And so the placement of the rainbows, you have to kind of pay attention to where the color changes, because you can't, as you can see here, every time the color changes, you don't actually get to make a rainbow just because of the placement. So it takes a little bit of, the back and forth of it all is, just garter stitch with some increases on the ends. But the logistics of making and then pinning up the little rainbows does require a little forethought and paying attention as you go back and forth. As it gets bigger, there will be more rainbows, and the spacing of them will not be probably as big a deal. But it's been fun. I know some of the folks in our weekly Zoom group, which if you are participating in the Knitalong and Crochetalong, or if you just want to hang out with some fun people to knit on Tuesday evenings, I hope you will join. The information to that is pinned in my Instagram feed. I'll also pop it down in the show notes below. But I know a lot of the people have been having a little struggle with making the rainbows and getting them right off the bat as tidy as they would like. But I think that it's just one of those things that it's just going to take some time. You do have to pay attention to being very, very loose when you first make the rainbow, when you make these bars, which then eventually get pinned up. Otherwise, you get like this one, a little more triangle-y of a rainbow. But it's been a fun project so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with this. I'll pick it up here and there while I'm working on the blanket if I get just tired of back and forth garter stitch on those triangles. But I probably am going to be finishing up both that and the In the Forest of the Night cardigan in July, because my real June goal is to finish up the blanket, and then hopefully I will be able to get some things started before we get too close to kicking off the fall Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. So that is all I have for the knitting and crocheting this week. Hopefully I will have a couple more squares to show you next week on the blanket, and maybe a little more progress. I should put a little progress mark keeper on that and that shell, so we can see how much progress I actually make in the next 2 weeks. And with that, I am going to shift over to Craftivism, which is going to be a little bit longer than usual this week, just because there are so many cool things that this community is doing to celebrate Pride Month, and I wanted to share as many of them as I could, because all of them are doing great things to raise money for some amazing causes. So, without further ado, the first thing I was going to talk about was seismic yarn. As I mentioned, I got to have lunch with Ava and the dye interns while I was in San Francisco, and Ava has on her website a group of yarns that she calls the Compassion Collection, and they are colorways that for the life of the colorway, 20% of the proceeds are donated to various organizations, which is incredibly generous. She isn't doing a lot in terms of ready to ship inventory right now, but she does have a dye to order option on her website, and you can basically pick any of her colorways on a number of bases, and she will dye them up to order for you. I wanted to highlight a couple of colorways here. So this is in my Sweet Shadow wrap by Leanne Parenti. This pink color, which I always say to me looks like pink lemonade, but it's pink and yellow variegated. It's called Daydream, and this is one of the Compassion Collection colors, and it is part of a set that 20% of the proceeds are donated to the Trevor Project. And you're going to hear a lot about the Trevor Project in the next few minutes because it is an organization that a lot of people feel very passionately about, and a lot of people are raising money for this month. It is an organization that specifically works to help LGBTQ youth and affirm them and prevent self-harm. They have a 24/7 helpline and do a bunch of work across the nation to prevent suicide. And so this colorway Daydream is being donated. 20% of the proceeds of that are being donated to the Trevor Project. So if you're not familiar with the Trevor Project, please go check them out. They're a tremendous organization. The other color that I wanted to highlight is this pink and purple variegated here. It is called Mother Must Go Now, and it is a skein of yarn that the 20% of the proceeds of the sale of it go to AIDS Lifecycle. So this is a colorway that Ava created specifically for this pattern and the kits that we sold in a Crochetalong in January, I believe. And she created this colorway, and for the life of the colorway, 20% of the sales are going to go to AIDS Lifecycle. So this one is very near and dear to my heart. I have some of it ordered and coming, and stay tuned. You will be able to pick up some ready to ship of it from me at some point in the not too distant future. But you can do dye to order of this in any of her colors on her website. So that is Seismic Yarn. She also has a colorway called Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which the proceeds of which get donated to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who, if you're not familiar, are a community organization with chapters all over the country who for years and years and years have been instrumental in providing care and support to people living with HIV/AIDS. So that is one. Dragonflight Yarns, which is Dragonflight Yarns on Instagram, are donating a proportion of her yarn sales all month to Trevor Project. And she also has a Pride collection. I'm going to pop some pictures of these things as they come up, just so you can get a sense of what they're doing. But 25% of her Pride collection proceeds are always donated to the Trevor Project. So that is, again, another tremendous help for the Trevor Project, and she has some beautiful Pride themed colorways there. Black Squirrel in Berkeley, which is a local yarn store in Berkeley. One of their employees, Sarah, who is on Instagram as Color Turable or Color Turable. It's like color and then Turable. It's all linked down below. But she, I think works at the yarn store, is also an indie dyer, and she has put together some colorways for their Pride collection. The colorways are called Category Is, from the ballroom scene, Queer Platonic, Say Love, and Silence Equals Death. And 20% of all of the proceeds from the sale of the Pride of that Pride collection in June are going to be donated to the Trans Health Legal Fund, which is a project of the Transgender Law Center, and it is providing resources for trans people facing investigation or arrest or prosecution for seeking healthcare. So very, very timely right now, since there are many, many states who are actively looking to prosecute trans people or family of trans kids who are seeking healthcare for them. So that's Black Squirrel Berkeley and their Pride collection going to Trans Health Legal Fund. Neighborhood Fiber Company, I'm sure you all know who they are, is splitting profits from both their Pride and Juneteenth collections, and they have these amazing, both Pride, there's I think Pride, Trans Pride, and a Juneteenth one. There's probably one more, Shawl blanks, so it's like a sock blank, but it's 1,000 yards of yarn, and they've dyed them in the Trans Pride flag and the regular Pride flag and then the Juneteenth colors. And you can make shawls just unwinding them as you go. I thought they were fantastic. Ordered one for myself in the Pride flag colorways, and maybe one for a giveaway down the road. Anyway, they are splitting the profits from both the Pride and the Juneteenth collections among 4 organizations that are working in the intersection against racism, homophobia, and transphobia. So they are Baltimore Safe Haven, which is the only trans-led drop-in center in Baltimore City, serving the trans LGBTQ community who are living in survival mode with food assistance, housing assistance, and education. So like a GED program and a vocational training program. So that's Baltimore Safe Haven. My Sista's House in Memphis, which is providing emergency housing and advocacy and assistance for transgender and gender nonconforming POC community in Memphis. Campaign Zero, which is a data-driven research organization looking to identify solutions to police violence. And then the Baltimore United for Change, which is a coalition of grassroots organizations working for social justice in Baltimore City, which arose after the murder of Freddie Gray by the police there in Baltimore. So those 4 organizations are benefiting from the sales of both the Pride and Juneteenth collections from Neighborhood Fiber Company. Pretty Twisted Yarns has this, here it is, gorgeous tie-dye rainbow inspired colorway called I Would Tie Dye For You, and it's her June fundraising colorway. $5 of each skein of this yarn will be donated to the Trevor Project. On a non-knitting and crocheting angle, which I haven't done a lot of that, so I was excited to see this, the Stitchers Collective and Starlight Stitchery has a Pride cross-stitch charity bundle. It's a digital bundle of cross-stitch patterns from 17 different designers that you can get for a minimum donation of $10. You can obviously donate more, and 100% of the proceeds of the sale of the pattern bundle are going to be split evenly between Rainbow Railroad and the Transgender Law Center. So I already mentioned the Transgender Law Center, which is organizing the Trans Health Legal Fund. Rainbow Railroad is a global organization that works to help at-risk LGBTQIA plus people in harm's way, either through state-sponsored violence or just in areas of the world, or quite frankly, probably in the U.S. at this point, where their lives are at risk, and they look to find ways to get them out of those situations through asylum and other places, but they work to get them pulled out of dangerous situations and relocated elsewhere to safer environs. So they're based here in the U.S. and Canada, but they work all over the world. So that is one of the beneficiaries from the Stitcher Collective and Starlight Stitchery's Pride cross stitch bundle that you can get for $10 or more. Christopher at Flannels and Pearls is also doing a fundraiser. It's a raffle. It is for a Pride collaboration that was done between Long Dog Yarn and Knit to Redo or Redux. It's a sock set, so skein and a mini, and a Pride themed project bag that sold out very, very quickly, but they, I guess, donated one to him to then raffle off. There are tickets available through, the details are down below, but basically you send him the receipt or proof of donation to the Trevor Project, and then you get entries into the giveaway. The more you donate, the more entries you receive. So that is Flannel and Pearls on Instagram. The details to the post where he goes through all of the how-tos is linked down below in the show notes. My friend Monica at Up North Yarns is also going to be donating about 10% of her, or not about, is going to be donating 10% of her recent sales to Upper Peninsula Rainbow Pride. So that's a local organization supporting the community in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. She has this Pride yarn on her website, but I think that the donation is coming from the sale of anything, and I think she has a couple of skeins of her Pride yarn left. Feed Projects, which is a non-knitting or fiber arts related organization, but an organization that has worked for many years to provide school lunches for kids. They have a Pride tote, so they mainly sell tote bags. So this year they worked with an artist named Kara Sykes, and they made this tote bag, which is available on their website. And with each purchase of one of these totes, they will donate 10 school lunches, as they do, I think, with all of their totes. And they're also going to donate $5 to the Ali Forney Center, which is the largest LGBT community center focused on serving homeless LGBTQ youth in the country, based in New York, and actually a partner with Knit the Rainbow for distribution of hand knit scarves and hats and gloves and things like that Knit the Rainbow collects, and that they're one of the partner organizations that they work with. Ross at Twisted Ambition Yarn. I talked about this last episode, but he's finally made it all public. His new collection, which is based on inspired by the musical Rent, is available for pre-order now. It's absolutely gorgeous. Here's a picture of it. And $5 of each skein from that entire collection is going to be donated to the Trevor Project. I don't know what the turnaround time or how long the pre-order is going to be up, but I think he said he was looking to raise $2,000. I think that was like 400 skeins of yarn. So go check that out. There's some tonals, there's some variegateds. They all kind of work together. And again, supporting a fantastic organization. Max at Les Garçons has designed his annual Pride fundraising enamel pin, and this year it is Pride the Lion. It's adorable, and 100% of the sales proceeds of the Pride the Lion pen, which I believe are $12 on the Les Garçons website, are going to be donated to Gender Creative Kids, which is a local Montreal organization that supports trans, non-binary, and gender fluid youth affirmations within their family, schools, and communities. So it's an adorable pen, and that's a fantastic cause up in Canada that you can help support. Silly Goose Yarns, who has done several colorways to support different charities over since I've been following her, has a new skein called No Big Deal, and $5 of each of these skeins, plus she's going to match $500 at least from her own personal funds, is going to support an organization called Tigers with 2 R's, and it stands for Transgender Intersex gender expansive revolutionary resources and services. And Tigers is dedicated to delivering quality, robust, and consistent direct services to transgender, intersect, and gender expansive communities in Minnesota, which I believe is where Silly Goose is based. So $5 of each of those skeins. As you can see, it is a beautiful, beautiful skein of yarn. It's going to help that local organization there in Minnesota, which has become kind of a safe haven state for trans folks who may be seeking healthcare but are shut out of receiving healthcare in their home states. And finally, Fatima Hines of Disturbing the Fleece has put out a bundle called Hot Sauce in My Bag. It includes 2 shawl sizes of the Hot Sauce in My Bag shawl, which is what I guess I'll call it. It's the bundle, but and then a hat. She has as you can see here, it's designed using the Lola Bean Yarn Co. Logo colors, and $7 of each of the bundle sales will be going to the Lola Bean GoFundMe. I know of 2 dyers. So again, Ross at Twisted Ambition Yarn has put together yarn kits for the shawl and or the hat. And 50% of the sales proceeds of those yarn kits are going to the Lola Bean GoFundMe. I know that Shoba at Serendipitous Wool has some kits available where you get the pattern and you get the yarn, and those are going portions of the proceeds, and I can't remember exactly how much of it is, if it's 50%, if it's 100%, I can't remember. But go check out the Serendipitous Wool's website and it's all there. That is also going to be donated to the Lola Bean GoFundMe to try to help in these last few weeks of the quarter to push that GoFundMe up to its goal to help Lola Bean expand their operations and scale up that business. So that is Fatima Hines' Hot Sauce in My Bag bundle with yarn kits available from both Twisted Ambitions Yarn and Serendipitous Wool. So that was a lot of craftivism, a lot more than I normally do, but there's just so many great things in the community right now going on in celebration of Pride. It really makes me happy to see the community doing so much and showing so much support for the community. Not sure if you caught it just in the last couple of days, but Knitpicks came out, Knitpicks and We Crochet. Knitpicks and We Crochet came out with patterns for all of the various Pride flags that they were posting on their Instagram and then were giving away basically for free. All the instructions were there on the Instagram post that you could use. I think it was their palette yarn to make just these little flags, and people were talking about sewing them together to make blankets or making them into buntings. Not surprisingly, the tiny knitting bigots community came out to, be nasty in the comments of when Knitpicks posted that. But it was, despite that, there were overwhelmingly majority of the people were incredibly supportive, and it just, made me happy. I don't know why people would get upset about that. It isn't for them. It doesn't have anything to do with them. It's kind of like when the people got upset about Target putting out their Pride merchandise, and obviously we're disappointed to see Target cave in a bit on that. But I'm just, it's like me getting upset about a store carrying Dallas Cowboy merchandise. It's just like, I'm not the customer. It has nothing to do with me. And it doesn't take anything away from me that someone wants to buy Dallas Cowboys merchandise. But, people get upset about all sorts of things that have nothing to do with their lives or their families. And there's not much we can do about it except support the people that are supportive of us. So I guess with that, thank you, Knitpicks, and thank you to all of these dyers and makers and designers who have put together these packages for Pride and are supporting some amazing organizations doing incredible work in the community. That is what this podcast is generally all about at the end of the day, is trying to find those opportunities where we can combine our love of making things and helping out our community. So I was so excited that so many people were doing things that I just had to share as many of them as I could gather as they came through my Instagram feed. And if you ever have any project or anything that you know of or you hear of that is doing good in the community, please reach out to me. I would love to spotlight the maker or the designer or whoever that are doing something fun and impactful for the community. So with that, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with me. Sorry if it was a little scattered this week. My brain is still not 100% back off the road. But I will see you in 2 weeks where I hopefully will have some more progress on this blanket and maybe finished a hat or something like that. So thank you so much for joining me. If you've liked this content, please leave a comment down below, like, share it with a friend. Everything we can do to help build this community is incredibly meaningful to me. So thanks a lot. I'll see you soon.